thank you once again for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. To start things off, actually, I would like to ask you all just a basic question of your belief of what activism is. So, Navid, would you like to start?
Absolutely. Thank y'all for all coming out. It's a great crowd. I want to say activism is actually caring about what's going on in your community and acting upon those issues that are very important to you, family, friends, and your community to make a difference. And sometimes it comes down to seeing with the broad perspective of what the day-to-day operations of the government, your community, and your friends, the businesses that are going on locally are affecting your lives. And so to be able to go ahead and activate individuals to change those rules or laws or make things better for the people in your community, to activate them, I would say, is what activism is.
Well, thank you very much for that. Zoe, how about you?
I think that's a great answer. His answer is really good, and I agree with it, and I would just refine it a little bit to say that whatever is important to you, you just have to figure out what's the path to getting that changed. And then for marijuana specifically, you have to get other people interested and feel like they can make a difference in that. So for RAMP, what we feel a really great way to be active in this is to be in the legislature and to be totally in the face of your state senator and your state representative and your congressman as well on the federal level, and focus on that, because we can't pass it through a ballot initiative. So that's specifically where I see activism for marijuana policy needing to take place. At the same time, I think that if you're an activist, you go for lower hanging fruit. I feel like I'm an activist on the criminal justice system at large, and so I feel like marijuana policy is something that we really can change in the near future, and it can affect a lot of lives. And that's just one scratch of the surface of a lot of different things that people could be active in, but you have to show people that no, we really can do this. It's not for all, all lost. So that's what I would say.
Excellent, well spoken. Elliott, any comment?
As a matter of fact, I think it can be summarized a lot more succinctly than that. It's the difference between posting about it on Facebook and helping people get elected that'll change policy. Really, activism is where you are saying, I'm fed up with how this is right now, and I'm going to make a difference, and I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to change policy.
Couldn't agree with you anymore. Well, thank you for that brief introduction about what you believe activism is. Now, the next question, and we're going to go ahead and let Zoe start off with this one and work the way down the line, is for someone who is new to the idea of activism, what are some of the initial first steps that are key to getting involved?
Coming out to events like this and finding the organizations like NORML, MPP, Drug Policy Alliance, and RAMP is a newer organization that you can get involved with that can kind of lead you there. And just generally you can dive right in, call your representative, email your representative, and go meet them. That is a great way to start forming the relationship. Go to events where they're going to be and pin them down and ask them the questions. So if you want any more information about what else you could be doing to help these other organizations spread the message, then you kind of team up with them and offer your services with them, and help them help you, basically.
Excellent, thank you very much. Elliott, your thoughts?
Well, for people who are new to getting involved, the most important thing is find out what really speaks to you. What are you passionate about? There's plenty of resources available right now in terms of being able to meet up with people. Like I mentioned, Facebook earlier, there's Meetup. Finding out where your niche is, of where you're going to be able to put that passion and transform that into change. Obviously, events like this are really good for single policy. Some people might be more comfortable in more of an intellectual type group capacity, but it all boils down to what do you care about and what can you put time into?
Well said. Navid?
So I think one of the most important things is putting an action item to a meeting, right? So getting friends together, putting an event like this together. I think we have one of the largest takeaways of any meeting that you have is what is that takeaway that, what I'm going to do after this? So bringing your friends to an event like this is very important to get the message on what we're trying to do. And then that's a story of like us, right? And a story of being able to share what we're doing right here is the story of you and what we're gonna do moving forward, right? So every action also has a result. So we have to have measurables in place too in order to be an activist. What is your measurable that you're gonna have? So moving forward, it's important to always say what you're gaining, how you're gaining, and where you're gaining. And also creating coalitions. At the end of the day, people say, well, you know, this side is this side, the other side is this side. Well, guess what? If you have a partner on the other side, you're going to have access to certain individuals that you wouldn't have before, right? Being, you know, a leader in a political organization and another leader in a political organization, they're going to have people that they talk to all the time. And being at the legislative session that's coming up soon, being able to put each other inside the room where usually you won't be able to get the message across, you can do that. And it's us coming together like this from all different political parties and saying that Texas is ready to be changed is what's important.
That was very well said, and I especially liked your note about forming coalitions. That is absolutely key. Now, all three of you within your chosen organizations have assumed or gone after leadership positions. Now, for the more novice activists out there, do you have any recommendations or anything that people can practice to help improve their leadership skills? And we'll start with Elliott now.
It's a good question. Within any organization, before you take off a bite bigger than you can chew, it's a good idea to figure out if you have the ability to commit the amount of time it might take to a leadership position. Once you've kind of checked that box, it's really good to start usually at a committee level, something that's not quite as high responsibility, but where you can really get your feet wet. I found that, again, just like with your organizational selection, gravitate towards what interests you. What are you good at? Are you good at recruitment? Are you good at public relations? Are you good at planning events? Just find what your niche is and then really grow within that.
Absolutely. Navid, how about we jump to you?
I absolutely agree. It's what you're comfortable doing, and sometimes even going further and pushing yourself and making goals to go beyond what you normally do. And then as a leader to organize a group of individuals to let them test themselves and let them get comfortable with what they're doing. Say, for example, you do a canvas or a phone bank or a tabling event, right? Let that person set a goal for themselves, go out there and do that action, and when they come back, measure it and say, okay, well, great, you did an amazing job setting up this phone bank or a tabling event. Can you train someone else? And so it's basically building a model to keep that person from just being the only person doing it, where you actually grow a network. So as they said on the, basically in the organizing model, it's started in Obama's campaign uses a snowflake model, right? So start from one point, train that person, let them train other people to do it too, where everybody becomes proficient to the skill that you need to move a movement forward.
Excellent words of advice. Thank you, guys. Now, the Trump speech is something often used by politicians when they don't strategically change their message for the groups that they are presenting to. But at political functions, especially for your organization, one political function is completely different from another. So how do you fine-tune your message in order to educate the people and gain their support, especially in terms of like marijuana reform? And we'll go ahead and start back with Navid again.
So there's a saying as a community organizer, know your audience. So when you go to speak to a group of mothers about marijuana reform, key aspect you would talk about is having their child be arrested and get a felony, and being not able to get a college education because of it, right? If you're going to talk to people who are doctors, you would talk about medical marijuana and the research that's taking place there. So every group has their reason on why they will fight for that issue, and when you bring them all together in the room and they talk to each other about these issues, one will understand the other one. And then they're able to take that message and talk to people in their communities, their PTAs, their civic clubs, and some of them are very, very delved in activism already in other aspects. You know, maybe they're big advocates on the potholes that we have in the city of Houston. How we're going to fix those things, right? But while they're talking about that, they say, well, we're spending resources for policing. Why don't we cut that budget, put it into streets, and we can do cite and release? Or let's allocate different resources different ways. Coming from like an economics background, you're changing and shifting issues that are hurting people to do better and better communities all throughout, you know, your different districts, your different city areas here in the county. So I would say bringing different groups together, but messaging on talking to them what's important to them.
Absolutely. Thank you for your remarks. Zoe, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I think that for RAMP, our founders, Ann and Bob Lee, have thrown themselves into the Republican circle and shared the story of their son, Richard Lee, and how he was, how he came to start using medical marijuana, and that story is great. Personal stories are so important. And you can connect with, like I said, NORML and DPA and MPP and RAMP if you want to learn more of these personal stories, because we get contacted by people who are going through these serious issues. And RAMP in and of itself is like an experiment in how to craft this message for Republicans. We feel like it's common sense too, some of us, and a lot of Republicans don't, and we just have to dive in and see what sticks. We went to the GOP convention and really pushed for a medical marijuana resolution, just the resolution, the platform at the convention itself, not life-changing or anything. A medical marijuana resolution, a decrim resolution, and we pushed really hard for those. Had a big fight on the floor of the convention in front of a bunch of people about medical marijuana. And I think a lot of it with Republicans is they've never heard any of this stuff before, is what we learned. They didn't know that medical marijuana doesn't have to be smoked, that a lot of patients don't prefer smoking at all. They like the oils. They have patches now with cannabis. They don't have to be psychoactive. It was just amazing the lack of education that they had on this subject. So I think that's, for us, that's a huge thing on like one side of it, is where we want to gain Republicans. And then there's other Republicans who say, I agree with you, but it's not my priority. And so we have to find a way to make it their priority. Again, with personal stories, they're helpful with that, I'd say, for that issue, yeah.
Yes, definitely. The pathos appeals to emotion are definitely a key in in winning this battle. But Elliott, you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure. Well, I've got the benefit of representing a party that's never had to be apologetic about being for marijuana legalization. Libertarians have been pro-legalization for 40 years now. So in terms of internally within the party, there's not a whole lot of debate on that. What we do is focus more on growing our efforts and helping make this an issue that Texans and other people really care about, so that they can fight for freedom on that battlefield.
Excellent. So now we're going to go ahead and kind of change gears a little bit and focus more, or the next questions will focus more on reforming the current medical marijuana prohibition and marijuana prohibition. So my first question for the entire panel, so you can answer it one by one or chime in whenever you feel like it, is that currently when it comes to being actively involved in the movement to reform our marijuana laws, how is it that we can best reach out to different demographics, such as women or those from the minorities that often feel the brunt of the current marijuana prohibition? So how can we improve our diversity and engage people from all walks of life?
ahead and start if you don't mind. I think that something that's really important for an issue like this that tends to have a lot of kind of historically negative stigma is just putting a different face on it. If you stand up for what you believe in and you don't care about what you would look like or how that association looks, and you just say, look, this is common sense. What we want is something the government should not have any control over in the first place. And there's too many people who are suffering in your communities, in our communities, and everyone's just as a result of really bad policy. I'll let you go.
Well, I think that, one underserved demographic could be Republicans on this topic, and so we're trying to reach out to people who care about it in the Tea Party or from a fiscal side of things. But I think it's really important to get minority groups interested in this topic too, because they are bearing the brunt of it. I think that Hispanic communities can be very conservative on this issue. So it's a hard one, but yeah, just appealing back to your kids get these criminal records. Like, for example, almost 50% of all the marijuana possession arrests in Texas every year are kids under the age of 21, under 21, almost 50%. And 75% are under 30, and that's a very young demographic to Republicans. So that kind of message, sharing that it's young people, and then this criminal record, you never get rid of a Class B misdemeanor. It's with you for the rest of your life. So I don't see how a plant that could potentially turn a kid off of a good career path because he smokes and becomes lazy and loses initiative in his life, how that could be a worse fate than getting a Class B misdemeanor for the rest of your life and turning your career path off track and paying money and being in jail. I just don't see the connection there. So it really is common sense. I think we need to have people understand the real face of who this is affecting.
And to add to that, the Democratic Party in their 2014 platform actually has a platform initiative to decriminalize marijuana. And so, that being said, we have candidates who are running right now who are openly for a cite and release. Currently, Kim Ogg has come out and said that she is for that with her GRACE program. So what we're seeing is our future elected officials they're going to have that as an issue. This is literally going to be something they have to talk about. So us as individuals and how we're able to move that ball forward is going out there and talking about what's really important and putting aside the silliness that everybody says, oh, this is what it is. Because the same things happened during the prohibition back when alcohol was prohibited. And they had ads that did the same thing that they're doing now in regards to cannabis being illegal. So it's all really just a systematic way to stop change from happening. And so how do you overcome that is basically organize, right? Have a neighborhood meeting, talk about it with your friends, and really put an initiative in place to really push something forward, especially when you have a moment where you can actually do action, which is during your legislative session.
Or before. One thing, I was at the Capitol recently, and I visited several Democratic offices too, and just said who we were. And several Democrats were like, "We know that this is going to be an issue this year. We know it's going to be." So that kind of positive statement this early on from Democrats, we didn't get that similar response from Republicans because they're very non-committal this early on. But that was really good to hear. So it is going to be a major issue in 2015. Right now is the time to get involved.
Absolutely, and I kind of want to do a follow-up to the whole the political platforms. Since there are some differences, and the Democrats clearly want to put forth a platform, and Republicans are a little bit more hesitant, as leaders of your organizations, what are some things that you can do to help the political parties collaborate to bring an end to prohibition?
So I'll go ahead and start off if you don't mind. I would say the first thing we need to do is talk to our elected officials. I mean, like as the Young Democrats, we're doing that constantly. We're bringing them in. We're having sessions with them. But bring that up as an issue. We actually had an endorsement process. And I believe, does the Libertarians, the Republican Party do their endorsements as well?
Yes.
The young groups do that as well?
We do a poll of our members.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I think, but you all do questionnaires?
You know, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't think that we do.
Well, so what we do is we send out a questionnaire, and one of the questionnaires we had in our last endorsement process was for the city was it was about legalization of marijuana, and some of them were hesitant to answer that question because they said, well, that's a state issue. It's like, no, well, what's your stance on it, right? It's about pushing that issue to every single elected official, be it your school board to your governor, to bring that up in a sense of what's happening statewide happens even locally to your most minute and small positions. So what we did was we pushed forward a questionnaire and asked them this question. Believe it or not, almost all of them, I would say about, except for one of them, they all answered yes, I'm for legalization, or basically marijuana being legalized in the state of Texas. So that's where we come in, and they, because of the discussion they had with us, they see it's really important for us as individuals, as young people coming up, and what our party needs to stand for, where it's going, where it's shifting. And that's why a lot of the Democratic elected officials you're speaking to, they see it's really becoming issues because a lot of people are pushing it. And so on the other side, right, we have Republicans not being able to make that understanding of this is an issue that's going on locally and we need to make a change, is because it's probably not being discussed with them. So what needs to happen is it needs to become a rolling rock where it starts moving down the hill and people start getting, it's becoming excited about it or talking about it. It's in the news more often. So we as individuals in this room right now that showed up, we need to be that people that really push that rock down the hill.
Yeah, that general buzz that's going on about marijuana, we want everyone to just know that it's a topic going on right now. And then the other thing about this whole question of how to form alliances politically, politics is so weird. It just, the more you learn about it, the stranger it is. I mean, you can't just come out necessarily as a Republican candidate and be gung-ho for marijuana, or you might get creamed by your base in the primary or during the election, and a lot of people can't come out in support of something that they might support privately because they don't think their constituency wants it. So we need Republicans in their constituencies to be calling on them and just generally saying this is a Republican topic too and we care about this too. And that'll give them a lot of support. The other groups that they care a lot about law enforcement groups. They care about DAs. If y'all, I mean, Kim Ogg, if she were elected, then she would probably support that topic. And if Devin Anderson, I mean, Devin Anderson is the Republican candidate, and she's had to come out and say that that she's launching a pilot program for marijuana diversion. And we don't know what exactly that will entail, but the fact that she's been pushed to have to release a statement about that is pretty great. So we'll see. We just need more of this pressure. And the great thing to happen would be for Devin Anderson to say, my hands are tied. I really need the state to change the law on this because I can't make a perfect program in Harris County. We just need to go ahead and change the law to a Class C or a civil penalty at the state level. So all these inner workings of politics, these are some things that you can learn more about from people who are involved at that level, and you can get on that level too. It just takes kind of diving into it and not being afraid or intimidated of people who are higher up in these party politics that, I don't know, on the Republican level, if they don't agree with you, they might, you know, think that I'm a loon, but I don't care because it's a public party and I get to go back every single event like you do, so that's
I was going to add, don't be afraid to ask. Like, that's the one thing. Don't be afraid to ask anybody anything, especially if they're making decisions about your life. So, that's right, absolutely. So, please, do not be afraid of your government or your elected official to speak to them, because that's who they are. They're supposed to be representing you.
I have to say it's refreshing to hear that you know, both of your parties are kind of moving closer to ours. It makes it a heck of a lot easier in terms of overall public support when we're all essentially growing towards an agreed upon platform, you know, for this particular issue, and it really makes for you know, if there's more dialogue coming from the top three parties, then there's more people who are eventually going to realize this is something I need to get behind, regardless of their party affiliation. So that makes me pleased to hear that.
Let's do one.
Well, that was some great insight and also some party promotion going on up on stage. Not to dim the subject, but going back to the repeal of marijuana laws, the opponents of reforming the current laws often go back to the fact of protecting their children. Now, in states where we have seen the legalization of medicinal marijuana, as well as states with the legalization of recreational marijuana, how do you feel if Texas were to move forward on decriminalizing or legalizing, how could your organizations help alleviate the concern held by parents and the rest of the communities about children having access to marijuana?
I'll go ahead and start. So obviously nobody here is in favor of children having marijuana. That's good. What we're really interested in is medicine. Okay, well, medicine, yes. I meant recreational use. The biggest argument against think of the children is going to be, well, think of the children if they get caught and their entire future careers are ruined, like Zoe mentioned earlier. Think of the violence that gangs bring into neighborhoods by making a prohibition and this demand for marijuana be on the black market. Think about all of the dollars wasted that could go towards potentially education instead. It's a moral, it's an economic, and it's a social imperative. There's really any argument saying think of the children. You should really think of the children and be on our side of the argument.
I believe that I believe it comes down to the parent, right? At the end of the day, if it's legal or illegal, you're most likely, if something is regulated and it's legal and it's regulated and it's taxed, it's most likely to be more, it's actually not going to be as accessible, right? But if something is in the black market and people are trying to sell it to young individuals to get them hooked and to get them, in a sense, hey, I need you to buy this, or bring in something where it's not regulated, you're going to have issues where we see that now. Marijuana use has not decreased. It's actually increased, right? And then on top of that, we have the fact that a large portion of individuals are trying to put law in place where we're spending close to over $100 billion a year. That's $100 billion of our tax dollars that we can be using for bettering our communities, like Elliott said, education, right? So it comes down to, ultimately, it hasn't changed. People are going to use the product regardless of what it is, but it's going to hurt people at a younger age if it's not regulated, right?
Absolutely. Zoe, would you like to add anything?
I'm really tired of arguing on the prohibitionist terms. I feel like we can argue about the science, the safety of marijuana all day long, but at the point is they are not succeeding in keeping marijuana away from kids. There's no success there, so I refuse to argue if marijuana is hurting the brains of developing children, and is it a gateway, and all of these things about, like, if one person uses marijuana one time, then, or if they become a recreational user, it's going to be really, really bad. It's like, yeah, but they're doing that already under prohibition. So, and then another kind of funny thing is a lot of times we'll be talking to people who are staunchly against legalization, and we end up coming to agreement on some kind of thing where they say, oh, well, I guess that would be different in a legal market, such as, marijuana can be cut with all kinds of different things, or not cuts, excuse me. It can be laced with all kinds of different things. And somebody gives it to a kid at a party and they think they're smoking marijuana, and we're like, well, don't you see how that would be different if there were a legal regulated market? And they're like, oh yeah, I guess that would be different in a legal regulated market. So as Republicans, we can always really appeal back to the free market. And I have nothing but confidence in the states that are legalizing because I understand free markets. And I just know that good news is going to come out of them. Because I understand free markets, I have no fear about what headline's going to come out of Colorado and Washington next unless the regulators screw everything up. And it's been really good news. It's been good news from these states who have had medical marijuana in the past. There's no increase in teen use from states that have medical marijuana programs. There's no increase in teen use. So anybody that says the argument, oh, well, people are going to use more marijuana if they think it's safer. That's just that, and they will think it's safer if we dole it out as medicine. Well, that's not true. I mean, you can just look at the facts. That's untrue. The other states have done this long enough for Texas, and I think by the time that we get to the point where we can legalize fully in Texas, that the good news will be so good out of these other states, and there'll be so many states that the pressure will be greater. So I think it's going to happen a lot sooner than a lot of these people that I talk to think it's going to happen.
I absolutely agree with all the statements that you made right there. But I would like to change things up just a tad and give a handful of our audience members, if they have any questions, to come up to the stage and ask the panelists some of their own questions. So I see a hand up, sir. Would you like to come up?
First of all, I would like to introduce Bob over here as an initial candidate, and he's very much in favor of reform marijuana law. I'm not speaking out of spot for you, Bob. The question that I have is that currently the way the law is structured here in Texas, it does give the judiciary within the counties and so forth to make a decision as to whether they're going to take the marijuana law. So to go to the state level and ask them to change it, they're going to come back at you and say, listen, we already gave you that opportunity. It's up to the districts here, the mayor and the county commissioners, to make that change. And when Perry came out recently and spoke about how it should be legalized, everybody was like, wow, we can't believe Perry said this? Then it died and flew like a lead balloon. It's down there. What do you guys propose that we do, or that you're willing to do, to get that, to bring it back to light, the issue here in the county?
Hold on one second. Are you talking about cite and release? Is that what you're referring to, that we can do that county by county?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Just making sure.
So if I would like to reiterate, I believe this question was, what can we do to implement the cite and release law, which was enacted by the Texas legislation back in 2007, which only a handful of counties have so far enacted. So the question was, what can Harris County itself do to get cite and release actually working for its citizens?
Obviously, electing the right candidates is the first step. In terms of a more immediate solution, anytime you happen to be called upon to serve on jury nullification is a very real power that we as citizens have. You can, they can stack all the evidence against them, and you can say, no, we find the defendant not guilty. That is something that we as people don't realize as a whole that we have and can do. And we can, anytime you are asked to serve, do it. Don't try and get out of it, because you have no idea if you could, make the difference in that for somebody who happens to be facing charges or, an unfair sentence against them.
For cite and release, I think that cite and release would be a great step, because I think arrests are a really terrible thing, and it throws you out of whack. You get confused. You might plead guilty. You don't know what you're doing. You have to hire a lawyer. You have to hire a lawyer regardless with cite and release, I would think. It's still a Class B misdemeanor. It's still going to appear in all the search warrants, unless Kim Ogg, in Kim Ogg's program, she proposes doing a plea bargain that would be, I think, a couple of days of community service, and then they would dismiss the case after that. Something way simpler like that, and then they would, I think, dismiss the case, but your indictment is still there, so you'd have to expunge that from your record and hire a lawyer to do that. So I think ultimately we should really push for a change to a civil penalty like MPP is working on, or that may get changed in committee to a Class C misdemeanor, which is like a speeding ticket. But I think that cite and release would be great to push locally. I think that, you know, with the cite and release program, we can push our candidates, our DA candidates locally, and that's really important because the DA candidates do hold sway over the state legislature. And if it's Travis County and Hayes County that are the ones that have implemented it, and there's a lot of other counties in Texas. So I don't think cite and release is the #1 policy to be pushing. I think it's, like I said, important because it pushes your local candidates. It's something you can ask them directly about. Your DA makes that decision. But overall, I would still push for a change to the law to make it, get rid of these criminal records for kids.
Absolutely, and I agree with both of my panelists up here with me, and again, it comes down to having good elected officials in place, and that means on your county level, who your county judge is, who your mayor is, and who your DA is, and how we're able as a movement to move that forward and have those discussions. So definitely it's about organizing.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that question to the floor.
And I'm still happy that Rick Perry made that statement. It still makes life easier for me. So I don't think it's totally dead. People cared about that.
Looks like we have another question in the back.
Hi. So the last question to the panel was about kids and how you know, it might negatively affect kids. And I think part of what's going on there, an important thing to remember is that marijuana is often called a gateway drug. They're saying, well, if we legalize the straight-J drugs, then the other drugs will become more common. And I, for one, don't think that's true. I think that the only reason it acts as a gateway drug is because it's grouped in with those harder drugs that we really do want people to mostly stay away from, right? So I think legalizing marijuana is about more than just marijuana. It's also about kids not trying marijuana, thinking, oh, well, this isn't that bad, when they've heard, you know, when they're told it's the worst kind of drug there is, because it's scheduled in with those, right? And they're thinking, well, I'll just try these other ones that are also illegal, because maybe they're not bad as well. So I think that if we can disassociate, if we can legalize that so that it stops being a gateway drug in that way specifically, that'll also lead to a decrease in other hard drug use. And that's an important point. So I wonder if the parties have considered that, and if that's part of their ongoing argument for marijuana legalization. It's the impact it can have on other kinds of harder and more destructive addictions.
Well, absolutely, and I think a lot of evidence points to the reality that alcohol is more of a gateway drug than marijuana has ever been, and that's something that's widely accepted in society. Another thing that we should really do to change the conversation when it comes to that type of thing is treat substance abuse as a health issue, not as a criminal issue. If somebody needs help and it's against the law what they're doing, they're a lot less likely to seek that help they need if they have an issue. So really changing the conversation to make it about people getting the help they need if they do find themselves in the cycle of addiction, and obviously not grouping something as relatively harmless as marijuana with much harder drugs is a really fantastic step for that.
I think one of the ways that I frame it is that it's not an all or nothing prohibition. The choice, the policy doesn't have to be an all or nothing, and we tend to allow our opposition to make it an all or nothing, but we can say that prohibition is a choice among many different policy choices, and we can treat all kinds of drugs in different ways that we do today instead of full-out prohibition. And one relatively high-up police officer that I know who is in Baytown, he's a Republican, he thinks that all drugs should be legalized because he just doesn't think that police as an outfit are the correct government body to be regulating drugs. And that's perfect sense, and it's just, I don't know, it helped me kind of reframe that specific argument.
And I agree with both of them. I think it comes down to setting up the argument in a way that at the end of the day, it's about what we're going to do with the funds that we're spending to ban it, or create this prohibition, we can make it awareness campaigns, right? Just like we do with nicotine or alcohol for younger individuals that, it's not the right time for you to use it when you're an adult. If you choose to use it recreationally, you can go ahead and do so.
All right, well, thank you for your input. Unfortunately, we're going to have to keep rolling on with our scheduled program for this evening, but there will be some more options to ask questions later tonight. But I would just like to ask you panelists one final question, is that, just any closing comments about your organization and your work towards reforming current marijuana laws?
Sure. What we're doing right now is we're meeting twice a month on either a meeting with an elected official or doing some action for an election that's coming up. So get involved if you can with any of the organizations that align with your ideology. And at the end of the day, we'll be able to go to the session and work together. So just don't look at it like I'm in this party and that's it. No, we're gonna cross aisles and work together.
And Houston Young Republicans does a political event and a social event once a month. And we have a lot of different Republican candidates that come out to that, and anyone's welcome to come to that. It's normally at Theo's on Westheimer, and it's, the time changes, so just look up Houston Young Republicans online or on Facebook. And there's, like I said, a lot of different candidates that come out to that, so it's a good time for you to come personally and show them your face and start that relationship. That's just one venue of Republican events that you can go to. We're a little bit, cooler, I think, than a lot of other Republican groups out there. And then RAMP itself, we have like educational events, and I'm working on an educational event out in Fort Worth area, I think is the next one we're going to do. But in Houston, we're actually going to attend, Theater Under the Stars is going to do Reefer Madness, so RAMP is going to have discount tickets for that if y'all are interested in that. And on October 2nd, they're going to have a panel, and I'm not exactly sure who's going to be on that panel, but I imagine it's going to be Democrats mainly. I'd love if they had some Republicans. But anyway, they're going to have a panel of elected officials after the Reefer Madness play on October 2nd. So we'll be there. For RAMP, you can find us at rampgop.org and just sign up for our newsletter and send us your address too, and we can tell you who represents you. And if we ever have a meeting with them, we'll let you know what they're about. We want to know if you call them, if you email them, so that we can track that kind of thing. So yeah, find us.
The Harris County Libertarian Party meets monthly on the first Thursday of each month, so that means a week from tonight we'll be meeting and doing a candidate volunteer session. We'll be meeting at the Corner Bakery Cafe on Blaylock and I-10, getting early start at 6 o'clock, but if you have ever been kind of hesitant about getting involved, now is the time. This is the Libertarian moment. Issues that matter to our party are happening now, and they're in the news and they're getting attention. So come out and be a part of it. Help grow the party. Our principle is there. We just need your help. Thank you.
Well, I would like to say thank you to all our panelists once again for coming out here tonight and giving us providing us with their information. Currently at this time, I'm going to ask the panelists to go ahead and step down. Make sure you take your mics off. And we'll introduce our next speaker here momentarily. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Elliott. Thank you.